Welcome back. Are you ready to dive back into this whole Jeremy Lee Sullivan versus Circle K thing?
Mm.
Last time we left off with Jeremy going for this like $5 billion lawsuit after just a really awful experience with his employer. Do you remember how he was keeping track of absolutely everything?
Oh, yeah?
Turns out that might be like the best thing he did.
Yeah, it's so important. We hear all the time, right? The documentation is key, but this case really shows you why.
Okay, so just a super quick recap. We're talking harassment. We've got possible credit card skimming going on. And then we have this company that just seems to be completely ignoring everything he's saying. But since our last deep dive, things have gotten way more intense.
Oh, yeah.
Jeremy's been sending all these letters to Circle K, like outlining everything that's been happening and demanding they actually do something.
Mm.
We're talking 7 letters.
Here.
He even sent a notice of action and a letter of intent to sue. And get this. In one of the letters, he said he would only meet with them face-to-face if the FBI and the Attorney General were there.
Wow. I mean, just think about that for a second. He's so sure that they're trying to cover something up that he needs the feds to just even have a conversation. I mean, that really says something.
It's a big move, but is it too much too soon? Like, what if he's, I don't know, overreacting?
Well, some people might think that, but remember, we're only getting Jeremy's side of this whole thing.
You're right.
He feels ignored. He feels like they've been retaliating against him. Maybe this is the only way he can actually get them to listen.
So how did Circle K respond to all of this?
Well, they didn't call the FBI, that's for sure. They totally ignored that whole request for a safe and neutral place to talk, and instead they did something totally unexpected.
What do you mean?
They sent him a letter demanding he show up for a meeting with somebody from HR, and it had to be the very next morning. And oh, by the way, they threatened to fire him on the spot if he didn't show up.
Whoa. So they're basically like, come face the people you're accusing all alone or you're out of here.
Yeah, pretty much. And for someone who already feels like he's being harassed and vulnerable, that's just got to be terrifying.
Okay, now this is where things start getting really messy. Is this even legal? Can they force him into a situation like that?
Well, legally, it's complicated. But ethically, it's just all wrong. Should any employer ever force an employee to confront the people they're accusing of all this terrible stuff without a lawyer or anyone there to protect them? It just feels like a recipe for disaster.
So did Jeremy do?
He refused to go, obviously, and he sent another letter, his 8th one. He laid out all his reasons. He said again that he needed a lawyer and the police there. He pointed out that by involving more women, they were, going against his whole conflict of interest request. And he said that if he went to this meeting alone, they would probably just retaliate against him even more.
So he's not backing down.
Nope, not at all. He's also raising the stakes legally. In that 8th letter, he accused Circle KHR of seditious conspiracy, interference, coercion, and intimidation, and even prohibition of coercion.
Wait, seditious conspiracy. That's a huge accusation. Is he saying that Circle K is working against the government? Is he going too far here, or is something really shady going on?
I don't know, it's hard to say without having all the facts. But you gotta give him credit for sticking to his guns. He's not letting them get away with anything. And here's the interesting part. With every move Circle K makes, they're actually making Jeremy's case stronger.
What? How? Isn't he the one making these, kind of wild accusations?
Just think about it. He's saying they're retaliating against him, creating a hostile work environment, and trying to shut him up. Then they demand that he meet with HR alone and threaten to fire him if he doesn't, totally ignoring his safety concerns and requests for legal help. It kind of makes his accusations seem more believable, don't you think?
So you're saying he's using their response to his accusations to build his case. That's pretty smart.
It is, and it just goes to show how important that documentation is. Every single letter, response, every action that Circle K takes, it all becomes part of the story. And don't forget, he's keeping track of everything, just in case he needs to show it to the authorities.
It's not just about the lawsuit, though, is it? There's that whole credit card skimming thing, too. If Circle K really thought those accusations were serious, wouldn't they have called the police themselves by now?
That is the big question, isn't it? Are they actually worried about their employees' safety and stopping any crimes, or are they more worried about looking bad and avoiding a scandal? Their actions so far don't really make them look too good.
It all comes back to that weird 9 a.m. meeting they demanded he go to. What were they planning? Did they really want to hear him out and fix things? Or was it all about intimidating him into keeping quiet?
Who knows? But the fact that they scheduled it for the morning, right after his 7th letter, the one where he said he wanted the FBI there, It's kind of suspicious, don't you think? It almost seems like they were trying to keep things under wraps before anyone else could get involved. It's like textbook, right? You've got this huge company with tons of money and power, and then you have one guy who feels like they've been treated unfairly and no one's listening.
And it makes you wonder, how many other people are going through something like this, but they're just too scared to say anything?
Totally. People are afraid to lose their jobs or even worse, get blacklisted in their industry.
Especially somewhere like Barstow. I mean, how many other jobs are there?
Right. So when someone like Jeremy actually stands up and fights back, it's kind of a big deal. They could inspire others to do the same, demand that their employers do better.
He's definitely not taking the easy road here. This whole thing has basically taken over his life, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. And I think it's important to acknowledge the toll it's taking on him emotionally too. All this harassment, the stalking, and now his own employer is threatening him. It's got to be a lot to handle.
And yet, he just keeps going, documenting every little thing, every interaction, every response. It's like he knew from the very beginning that this was going to be a fight, and he needed to be ready for it.
It shows how determined he is. He truly believes that what happened to him was wrong and that people need to know about it. Which brings us back to him going public with his story. Remember that 5th letter? The one about the skimming and the restraining order? He sent that to all the news outlets in Southern California.
Yeah, and you said that was a big turning point. Why was that so important?
Well, it kind of shifted the power a little bit. It wasn't just his word against Circle K's anymore. Now everyone was watching.
Companies really hate bad press, don't they?
Oh yeah, he knew that. He knew that hurting their reputation would hit them harder than any complaint he could file internally.
And by going public, he gave other people a chance to share their stories too, right? Maybe there's a bigger pattern of bad behavior here.
Exactly. It opens the door for other employees, maybe even people who don't work there anymore, to back up what he's saying.
So has Circle K responded to any of this since the story went public?
Not publicly, no, but look at what they're doing behind the scenes.
What do you mean?
Their response to his 8th letter, the one after they tried to force him into that meeting, it says it all. Remember, he accused them of some pretty serious stuff in that letter.
Oh, right, like seditious conspiracy, coercion, all that.
Yeah, exactly. And instead of addressing those accusations, they just kept pushing for that meeting, even threatened his job again.
So they're ignoring the legal stuff and just trying to control the story.
Seems like it. They want to keep everything quiet, handle it internally, and avoid more bad publicity.
But isn't that just making things worse? The more they try to shut him up, the more it looks like they're hiding something.
You got it. It just feeds into that idea that they have something to hide. And it actually makes his original claims about the harassment and retaliation even stronger.
So classic, right? The cover-up is worse than the crime.
Exactly. And in this case, the cover-up might be a crime in itself. Remember, he's keeping track of all of this to give to the authorities. He's already filed a complaint with the FBI about the skimmers, and he's contacted the district attorney, too.
So this is far from over.
Oh, yeah. And this is where things could get really interesting. If the authorities decide to investigate, Circle K could be in a lot of trouble.
This is more than just an employee versus his company now.
Right. Now you're talking about a potential criminal investigation. Things could get pretty serious for the company and anyone who is involved.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. We've got this massive lawsuit, possible criminal activity, a company that seems more worried about their image than actually fixing anything, and an employee who's not backing down.
Yeah.
So what happens now? What are the possibilities here?
Well, it's too early to say for sure, but let's think about what could happen.
All right, so what's the best case scenario for Jeremy?
Ideally, the authorities take his claims seriously, they investigate, and they find evidence to back him up. That could lead to criminal charges against the people involved with the harassment and the skimming.
And what about the lawsuit? Could he actually win all that money?
Well, he probably wouldn't get the whole $5 billion, but if he wins, he could get a pretty big settlement. That would help him recover from all the damage that's been done. But it would also send a message to Circle K and other companies that this kind of behavior is not okay.
So, justice for Jeremy and a warning for everyone else.
Right. But let's be real, things don't usually go that smoothly.
Okay, so what's more likely to happen?
It probably won't be quick or easy. You're looking at a long legal battle. Both sides will dig in, and it could drag on for months, maybe even years. Lots of legal fees, lots of stress.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. And a lot of times it comes down to who has more money and who's willing to fight longer.
And in this case, Circle K definitely has the advantage there.
They do. But don't forget about the public. all the attention this case is getting, that could force Circle K to change their strategy.
So they might settle just to make the bad press go away.
Exactly. That's why Jeremy going public was such a smart move. Sometimes getting the public on your side is just as powerful as winning in court.
So yeah, pub pressure could really be a big factor. But what about Jeremy himself? I mean, isn't it kind of dangerous for him? He's basically going up against this giant corporation, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's a real concern. We know they've already retaliated against him, and now that he's gone public, who knows what they'll do. Plus, all the attention could make things worse.
And we can't forget about that other employee who's, stalking him,
Right.
right? That makes everything even more complicated and even scarier.
Right. This whole situation has so many layers, and honestly, who knows what's going to happen next? But the important thing is that Jeremy feels strong enough to speak up and fight for what he believes in.
Yeah, you got to give him credit for that. It takes a lot of guts to do what he's doing, especially against a huge company like Circle K. But, we were talking earlier about how Circle K's actions don't really match what they say in their own ethics and stuff.
Yeah.
Can we, dig into that a little more? What do they actually say about ethical behavior and protecting whistleblowers?
Well, they have this whole section on their website about ethics and compliance. They have this ethics code of conduct that applies to everyone who works there, like executives, board members, everyone. It's all about acting ethically and following the law. And they even have a whole policy about protecting people who report concerns, whistleblowers.
So on paper, it sounds like they really care about doing the right thing.
It does, doesn't it?
Mhm.
But then you look at what they're doing in this case with Jeremy, and it's just totally different. They ignored him, they retaliated, they basically tried to shut him up.
Yeah.
So you gotta ask, do they really care about ethics, or is it all just for show?
I guess that's the real question, isn't it? Are they going to live up to their own standards?
Exactly. And it just shows that being ethical isn't just about having a fancy policy on your website. It's about actually doing what you say you're going to do. It's about creating a workplace where people feel safe speaking up when they see something wrong.
And in this case, it seems like Circle K really messed up. They're making it look like they care more about protecting their reputation than protecting the people who work for them.
That's definitely the story people are starting to see. And if they want to change that, Circle K is going to have to do something.
Right.
This whole case has brought up some really important issues. How much power do companies have over their employees?
Yeah.
How can we protect employees better? And do corporations have to follow their own ethical rules?
It's crazy, right? You wouldn't think something like this could happen at a regular convenience store. But it makes you wonder, what else is going on out there that we don't know about?
Yeah. I think we all need to be paying attention to these kinds of stories and hold these big companies accountable. And we got to support the people who are brave enough to speak up, even when it's hard.
Exactly. We all have a part to play in making things fairer, even if it's just paying attention and talking about it. This whole deep dive has been really eye-opening. And honestly, I don't think we've heard the last of this story.
Oh, definitely not. We'll keep following it and let you know what happens. But for now, think about this. If you were Jeremy, knowing everything you know now, what would you do? How would you protect yourself and fight for justice?
It really makes you think about your own values, right? What's right, what's wrong, and what would you do if you were in that situation? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time. Until then, stay informed, stay engaged, and stay curious.